Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly, and this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and we are TruthCat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. And let's see, what are we? We are March 7th, 2024. All right, the title of the show tonight is The Can't Be Killed Club. Now, if you read my book, you've heard me talk about this before, and I'm sure I've talked about it here and there on occasion. People have been asking, and then a few people have even asked me to, expand on this stuff. And of course, a lot of the answers that I have to give when people say, well, why do you think this is? I have to give them sort of speculative stuff. But anyway, I decided that now is a good time to do this. It has a lot to do with my efforts to try to increase my exposure. And the main way I'm going to plan on doing that is through healing. It's nothing like throwing around a few miracles to get people's attention. I know people say, what do you got, a messianic complex? Well, gosh, I am trying to heal whatever 25 million years of damage and, take out Satan on earth and 750 million entities that serve under that entity, whichever you want to call it, Lilith or that. So I don't know, whatever. I only got so much time to do this. You can call it whatever you want. But yeah, I've done a whole bunch of miracles. I don't keep track of it. I don't charge money. There's plenty of people out there could tell you about it, but I don't really collect testimony. I did for a little bit. I was going to put in a book or something, but whatever. People come and go. You do 100 of these things a day, and you move on to the next one. Anyway. But this Can't Be Killed Club thing, I don't want to call it ego. A lot of people, think that's what this is about. You know what? If you were able to say that you were one of these people that could say this, then what would you do with it? Me, I'm just trying to take over the world. I mean, you may have heard, a couple of you may have heard me mention the CIA NSA thing. And before I even knew I was dealing with the NSA or the Ollie North gang, I got a kind of a bad way with these people, okay? But I guess, and I thought they were going to kill me for sure. I wore body armor, real good stuff, 3A, Kevlar. Back in those days, we wore 3A. It was still the good stuff as far as soft body armor. Then you have to add plates and what have you. But no, I had a really nice wraparound Kevlar vest that I wore for a good year or so until I figured they weren't coming after me. But I decided tonight what I want to do here is kind of go in chronological order and start at the beginning, when we were kids and stuff like that growing up, and then add all the stuff that has happened since I wrote my book in the last 12 years. Obviously, a lot of things have happened. A lot of people are dead. What can I say? Hits have been taken out on me, that kind of thing. That's all not in the book. So we'll talk about that all tonight. But like I said, I'm going to just start out with the childhood thing first. All right. Well, I guess, a lot of us, you think you should have died. That car should have hit you, your bike, whatever, things like that. That happens a lot. I was born premature. That's being pretty close to death, too. But several times I could say I had this old 64 Ford Galaxy station wagon. It was a big monster that my parents bought way back when, of course. And I wanted that thing. And, of course, I turned it into a crazy, something a 16-year-old, 18-year-old male would turn it into. But anyway, bottom line, did some crazy things with that. So, Ricky racing down the highway, the traffic stops, and somehow I don't hit anybody. One time my brake line was rubbing up against my custom Thunderwell headers and busted right as I was kind of speeding up into a three-way intersection with cars going through it. And somehow this big giant station wagon managed to get through those cars. Little things like that, heart-stopping moments. One time I was stuck up in Black Star Canyon, if you know anything about that, what that's like. But it's basically a mountain road at night with no moon, and my car was dead, and we tried to have a whole bunch of, seriously impaired young kids in this van, or not van, my station wagon, trying to roll down that hill, and somehow we made it. It's like one of those nights that Satan's just laughing at you, go, ha, you're dead. But anyway, we made it. But other things happened. One of the things that really stood out, I think I talked about this in the book, was I was living in a condo after I got married, And I had these neighbors, these flaky people, they had like a bedspread that was for a Motel 6 or something, that kind of thing, whatever. But their little, I don't know what you want to call it, nephew showed up, and he proceeded to start robbing the local houses. And one night they asked me to come over, and he had all these guns that were stolen. And I'm a gun collector, and I saw, there was like a gold-plated Colt 40, 1911, a couple other things. And sure, I would have liked to have those guns, but at the same time, being a gun owner, I thought, this is ridiculous. This guy's got to get his guns back. Anyway, I went home, and I narked this guy out. I called the local cops on this guy. And anyway, they almost came immediately. As soon as they said, yeah, there's stolen guns here, they were like, whoop, they're in there. Anyway, I kind of hid out for the whole process of that, but older uncle, nephew, whatever brother he was, uncle, brother, found out about this. He had a motorcycle, and he actually lived there. But when he found out about it, I don't know where he was. He was probably at a bar or something. He got a phone call that says, Jimmy's in jail, and they even narked him out, and the cops came in here and took him away and took your guns, and that kind of thing. Anyway, bottom line is he got his motorcycle and come racing to come get me. And this was only like, less than a mile away, a couple of blocks in either direction. You had to make a turn. But, somewhere along the line, before he got too far, pickup truck pulled up in front of him, just pulled out, whatever, entered the lane that he was hauling ass down. And his motorcycle ended up in the back of that pickup truck, pretty much. And he went through the windows and out the front and, landed out in the street in front of the truck. Anyway, it was extremely nasty thing to happen to anybody. But, that was the first time I really got that whole kiss of death thing. And, I'm never going to remember all the stuff that happened back in those days, but there was quite a few. But sometimes it doesn't have to be somebody that wants to kill you. When I was at work once, I was working for PerkinElmer. There was a guy, and I ran the massive optics. Well, there was the massive optics department, but one side they did aspherics, and one side they did what I did, Plano. I was like half the shop, and there was this other guy. Anyway, I was a prima donna. I pretty much did crazy stuff at that place, and I did anything I wanted, and everybody kind of, obviously that didn't make me real popular, but they connived a scheme to basically try to demote me. This is how I actually got hooked up with the CIA, because they said, really, you want to demote me? I said, I'm taking a leave of absence for 6 months, and I went off to work with my brother in Vegas and ended up getting hooked up to CIA. Go figure, see how this works. But here's the funny thing. That guy who took over the entire department, who used to be just, doing aspherics, big giant, that's really fancy stuff for like fusion. He came down with a very extremely painful, incurable back disease. And who knows what he's doing right now, but he spent the rest of his life in misery. Now, that kind of thing happened a lot. When I had my own laser company, and when I had the Law 17 laser, which was the hottest thing in the world, the first company to really rip me off was a company called Aerotech up in, it was either somewhere close to Seattle or somewhere close to Portland, Oregon. I don't remember, but probably more than likely Oregon. But the thing is, Aerotech, they use this. They created a bum thing that sort of looked like my prototype. They created a prototype that sort of looked like my laser, and they ran all these huge amount of ads, and they called it the Law 2000. So it was a deceptively similar trademark. Obviously, I had to sue them. So I had to make a choice. Do I sue these guys, or do I put a bunch of money into advertising and try to counter them that way? And that's what I ended up doing. But of course, I'm a little small, naive guy, and didn't really know what I was doing. And of course, it was difficult. But what happened was the guy that was responsible for the whole shenanigans, kind of ripping me off and all that stuff. Once it got set up and rolling, they actually were delivering product. He turned the whole operation over to his son. Well, needless to say, his son had a fatal car accident shortly thereafter. And I think, that kind of devastated the guy and his company. They didn't really go anywhere after that. But that happens a lot. Again, I don't want to focus on the business-oriented aspects because there's probably others. I'm going to go kind of quick on this because we're going to talk about more things. I just got to focus on trying to remember as much of these things as I can. There was a lot of times I didn't have anything to do with it. Like Vince, I talk about Vince. He was the soon-to-be found-out reptile handler that came along when I was dealing with the plasma beam, which of course was a big CIA thing. And I always knew he was kind of an alien just by the way he talked, but he got killed. He got killed after he told me he talked too much. So I'm pretty sure that wasn't me. They killed him. But there was another guy, Tom Hansen. He came along later. This is before I really knew about the Getty and stuff. And this guy was dating my mom and all that. He turned out to be an alien, and he died a mysterious death. I have no idea. But hey, this was after he ran away from me. These people, they tend to run away from me. I always wonder when I find out, well, this guy's a secret agent, this guy's a this or that agent, la, la, la. Who knows? But for whatever reason, they're all scared of me. And of course, I always thought, well, I've got this reputation for shooting really good. And they're all afraid because they all assume I'm carrying a gun around all the time, which I did a lot of the time and stuff like that. So sure. But physically, no, I mean, it's not like the movies. If somebody really wanted to come and get me, you'd think they'd be able to pull this off, get somebody dumb enough to try to do it, but they just don't. They live in this fear. I could never really understand that. Now, ultimately, of course, and I'm sure I left out a whole bunch of instances of dead people and maimed people and stuff like that, but is when I hooked up to these Getty guys. Okay? But before I hooked up to the Getty guys, and this, of course, was the night or the day after Bora went underground and checked everything out and came up with a detailed report of what was down there. The next day, once we debriefed Bora and found out what was going on, and I knew that time there, I knew I was dead. Oh, wow, I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot the NSA. I told you guys earlier that I was wearing a body armor and stuff, and I'll just get into that a little more detailed. Basically, I think I had a $2.6 million contract. And my profit from this thing, I believe, was about $600,000, something like that. And this was a 12-month contract. But of course, I didn't work it out enough or properly in proper length. My contract wasn't hard enough. Of course, they told me they could defeat any contract anytime they want. But I didn't. I needed to have a 12-month completion thing, and I didn't have that. So all they had to do is stall and try to stretch it out. Either way, the world got changed because diodes got produced in large enough numbers that cheap enough that we could make cat toys that cost $8 instead of $300, which is what they would have cost if I had never done this. But I had a whole bunch of products that was basically originally the Rev 1, which was a 3 milliwatt index guided laser diode, and immediately the technology went to a 5 milliwatt gain guided. And I always told them, guys, this is what you want. And they go, no. It was like $3 cheaper. So they went with that. But of course, the performance wasn't good enough. So I got stuck with, I don't know, about 1,500 of these things because that's the ramp up schedule. We made 5,000 or 500, 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, yada, yada, all the way up to whatever it was, 40,000. That was the plan. So I ended up with boxes of these silly things, and I took them. And because I set it up so that I would have the control by controlling the electronics and controlling the assembly, and it wouldn't be done in their facility like they wanted it done. Anyway, screw them. But I took them for that, which was about whatever. It was a lot of money back then. It was a little over $100,000. And I sold it all over the place and changed the world, of course, because suddenly all these institutions out there could get a solid-state laser for like nothing. And believe me, everyone bought them. But the bottom line is they were pissed. They're pissed. That's why I went and got that body armor. Well, what I found out, what ended up happening was, first of all, they got sued. All the companies, all the vendors, the various companies that made the different parts, except for the circuit board that I made, well, everything else, they got hit with a bill for 40,000 units. So they kind of got run out. They had to go through all sorts of litigation, of course. I didn't go through anything. I just took my parts and ran. uh, I ended up with all the parts. Everything that they were having to defend themselves against having to pay for, I ended up with that product. So, so you can imagine I was just expecting, it was just around a corner where one of these jerk-offs with their cigarettes rolled up in their sleeve trying to look like James Bond with their mustache and glasses and, whatever, khaki shirt. What do they call those things? I don't know. Jungle adventurer type outfit. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So again, after a whole year, you kind of get numb to this. You sort of figure that it's not going to happen. You take your body armor off. You said, these guys aren't coming around. And I had a lot of CIA people in my clique. Okay, because I didn't just work with the CIA. The CIA were my customers. They would come to me with their Glocks or their whatever, and I would trick them out and put, ultra cool lasers on them. And once you do that, it's like you're attached to the hip to these people, literally, because it's like their baby, their gun. You're doctor, my baby's not working properly. Don't worry, I'll fix it right up and red label it back to you the next day. You're good. And let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. You do that a few times to a few attorneys and a few high-ranking individuals, they're not going to forget you. But sometimes if I'm in a bind with like the ATF or something like that, and I call one of these guys up and say, hey, man, the ATF's coming after me. What do I do? Can you help out? They go, don't worry about it. They don't have the budget to go after you. You're cool. Just don't stress. But the thing is that, first of all, I didn't know that it was the NSA. Okay. I didn't know. My impression was the NSA were the biggest assholes. This was before I knew anything about Templars and the Getty and all that. Okay. So that was my experience. So by this time, I'm pretty well used to this can't be killed club thing. And then I know my brother is also in the same club, and we're identical twins. Hello. You know what I mean? We practically share the same soul kind of a thing. It's weird. They used to throw us in the Amazon if we were born in the jungle. But anyway, here's the thing. This whole business with this Intertel Mafia, Khazarian Mafia, you can't say that on Twitter anymore. It's called Intertel, and at the time, it was run by Robert Vesco, who was this big money financier, mafioso type thing that basically ran all the other mafias, the Italian mafia, the Cuban mafia, the Colombian mafia, Mexican mafia, yada, yada, Chinese mafia, and on and on and on and on. Okay? The Jeffrey Epsteins of the world. Well, anyway, the Nixon family, President Nixon, basically told their nephew, the son of Richard Nixon's brother. His name was Don Don. They called him Don Don. He wore some funky-ass glasses, that dude. He had some bad dandruff, too. But anyway, they said, hey, man, go to work for this dude. And he did. And Don Don became the number 2 man under Robert Vesco. Now, bear in mind, Don Don was our connection. He was the guy. He was the guy that turned us on to all this CIA crap and different contacts and all that. And the whole purpose, it turned out, was they were looking for me. But instead, they focused on my brother because he was running magazine ads showing 300-watt argon lasers putting the Budweiser logo on the side of the moon. And when you run ads that do stuff like that, the CIA jumps on you. I mean, if you're in the laser business, you don't just have CIA all over you. You got aliens, UFOs, all kinds of crap going on. They're watching you because that's one of those technologies they gave us. They monitor that shit. Anyway, so Don Don was doing a whole bunch of crap with my brother. It wasn't just CIA stuff. A lot of that crap I ended up with, and that's how I got hooked up with the Ollie North gang. But before all that happened, my brother took him for roughly, $400,000, which was back in those days, a pretty decent amount of money. And Don, just like in Nixon, he lived in Yorba Linda, California. That's where the Richard Nixon Library is and all that stuff. Well, anyway, Yorba Linda, California is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Anaheim. Anaheim Hills, screw it, I don't care, where my brother lives. So one day, Don Don freaks out and starts bashing on my brother's door. And of course, it's this really huge, door. But he didn't get in, but he damaged the door. And my brother called me up and said, I got this guy, maniac, after me. Now, what we didn't know is Don Don calls himself a Templar assassin. Okay, he thinks he is a wizard Templar assassin. And if you're working under a guy like Robert Vesco, you probably, yeah, that's exactly what they are. But I'm used to this stuff. Anyway, Don immediately rushes off to Cuba, where his boss is living, Robert Vesco. But he'd been kicked out of everywhere, and he was living under Castro's protection. And so he's having a meeting with Don. They're going, this guy Norman, he ripped me off. What are we going to do? Why are we letting him do this? Why don't we just kill him? Do we really need this guy? That kind of a thing. And what happens? The Cuban police bust down the door and arrest both these fucks and throw them in jail. Now, of course, I remember at that age, I was pretty young, but I used to read the damn Register newspaper. Okay, every day. I followed this story. I waited to see how long it was going to take this guy to get out of jail. I had no idea of the significance of all this and how high up this was. We're talking the head of the international mafia. Okay? It's not just a mafia. It's a damn pretty powerful organization. It is the group that runs the world. Anyway, I mean, there are elders underground in the bunkers, but these people, like I'm talking about, we're getting to the Getty. These are the bunker people. Anyway, Don got out a couple months later. Vesco, on the other hand, he died. He died in that Cuban jail. And who took over when he died? The orange man, the one that people are giving me shit about. Come on, people. It's public record. My God. Now, I don't know anything about this, but until somebody can show me who is the real boss and who really took over for Vesco, I just need to know. But all I know is the Orange Man became CEO of Resorts International, and Robert Vesco was the CEO of Resorts International until he died. It's kind of a no-brainer, but just tell me who the person is, and I'll investigate. All right. Anyway, so that's a pretty high price to pay. So in other words, this is how scary we are. Okay. Now, I gave my brother armor. I gave him a big shield. In fact, he still got it. The prick took it from me. I gave him one of these big police shields. I said, here, hold this behind the door. If he tries to shoot through the door, you can use this, blah, blah, blah. That kind of thing. Whatever. Yeah, he's my polar opposite, you might say. I'm the yang, he's the yin. I'm the service to others, he's the service to self. That's kind of how this stuff works. Anyway, so that's a big hit. So they've never really wanted to really fuck with us at all ever since. And yet at the same time, they thought it was my brother. Okay, now, Tom Hansen, who I mentioned earlier, the one that tried to get me out to Area 51, who was a damn alien and also a real-life caver, he died. But that experience is what led me to recognize what was going on when the Getty was focusing or basically recruiting a new trust fund manager who was a son of a high-ranking Mason. Okay, it's all the bloodline thing. This is all before I even knew my dad was CIA, but it wasn't CIA. It was State Department, because that's what they called it back then. It was some obscure branch of the State Department, but it was CIA. Okay? It's like James Bond, he's selling insurance or some stupid thing. Nowadays, the West are so stupid, it's just like it's all out in the open, it's out of control, but you want to know what it really is? It's this damn mafia. Vesco's mafia, Khazar mafia, whatever you want to call it, international mafia. They run the CIA. They run the NSA. They run everything. They run the DNC and the GOP. Doesn't matter which party, they run it all. Boy, isn't Elon learning those lessons. Now, so that went on. Let's see what happened. Okay, moving on to the Getty. When we finally had Bora go down there and do her snooping, her astral snooping, this is before I was able to do stuff like that. I didn't realize I had to learn this stuff back then. Anyway, we thought we were dead. I remember I was in my business, SK Industries, and I went and answered the phone. And back then it was a wall phone with a landline and a wire connected to the handpiece, old-fashioned thing, vintage. And I heard that story and I thought, oh shit, now we're dead. Now we're really dead. All those other times were nothing, but now this is it. This is the real thing. Now we're really dead. I thought for sure this is the sort of thing you don't live through. And my brother felt the same way, and I'm like, oh my God. I just felt at that time, I felt there was nothing I could do about it. Okay. Now, bear in mind, I had just gone through the whole Tom Hansen thing, where my entire work area and home and everything was bugged, and these people knew everything about me, everything I said in private, everything I said in the tightest corners of my. I could be up in the attic of my shop, and they'd still hear what I was saying. Actually, I knew right away. Anyway, again, this is all CIA, alien, all kinds of everything bullshit. But we thought we were dead. The next day, they did freak out. The heavy duties, underground caver types, whatever you want to call them, Templar kings, Templar elders, they freaked out. And the first thing they said was they told that trust fund manager guy, don't talk to these people, don't get near them, don't be involved with them, don't. Now, I would assume that they're going to kill us, but apparently, why would they even have to say anything to this guy about it unless they're trying to do damage control? Well, basically what Jim did was he said, no, Aaron, I'm not going to do that. These are my people. If you want me to be your new blood so you can crawl into your bunker and you want me to take over, I'm going to have my people around me because these people are going to help me. So you're just going to have to deal with it. Bear in mind, again, they didn't know about me. So the first thing they did was they blew a bunch of smoke up my brother's butt, told him how wonderful he is. They started trying to test him, see how psychic he was and all this shit. And then they tried to set him off on a fact-finding mission or some sort of a psychic mission over to Mount Ararat to go check out Noah's Ark while they're collecting biological material from the ship's human head. Now, of course, that had to require a military rank, and I said, don't do that because once you get the military rank, they can throw you in Leavenworth and you don't have any trial or nothing. You don't want that. But they didn't do it. But what happened, and this is where the title of the show comes from, is that the whole time that Jim was being recruited, I was briefing him. So everything, and I was going through my brother. So my brother was looking like this, psychic person, and they were being really amazed by what he was doing. But one night I had the opportunity to go out to dinner and meet Jim with my brother and his friend, who was Jim's friend originally. And it was that night, after me talking a little bit, that Jim, who was actually sitting next to me, turned to his what was it? His right or left or whatever, looked at me and said, "Oh my God, you're the one we've been looking for." And then he swiveled his head the other direction and looked at my brother and says, "You're just a pale shadow of this guy." And then that was the night that they thought that they found the person they were looking for. Now, if that isn't messianic, I don't know what is, but it gets worse. Okay? They told me basically that they had alien technology called Project Looking Glass that they used to monitor the future, to monitor timelines, to monitor everything, to look for people, to monitor here it comes, the bloodline of Christ. Okay? That's what Templars do. Hello, Da Vinci Code. It's what they do. Deal with it. Now, I don't have to believe it, but they believe it. They put a lot of money into this stuff. Anyway, so they basically told me I'm the one, Neo, the one they've been looking for thousands of years. They knew was going to come, since, that event. And they said, you're the one that's going to defeat us, and there's nothing we can do about it. Now, I'm not making this shit up. There were other people sitting at the table, and one of them was my brother, who at this point was crushed. His ego was crushed. He thought he was the one. He was a special one that was going to go fly to Mars and the moon and hobnob with Chelsea Clinton and whatever bullshit like that. Seriously, he was talking about shit like that. They were filling his head with crap. So Masonic. Anyway, as soon as they figured out it was me, they did a little search and found out who I was and what I was. And at that time, I was an extremely large, popular, famous purveyor of weapons, high technology, tactical gear, secret weapons. I had a long history of working with the alphabet people, everybody in the entire so-called West, NATO, foreign governments, Germany, Spain, etc., etc. Okay. Before they even introduced the G36 rifle, they sent me the blueprints so that I could design a laser for it, which was the universal laser, which, had I marketed and followed through with the contract I was going to get from Fort Collins or whoever it was, I'd have about, $500 million right now. I calculated just on one sale, I was going to make $500 million. Okay. So I gave that up. Okay. Too much blood, but they knew I was going to do it. They knew from Project Looking Glass that I was going to make this thing, this 3-beam laser that I called the universal laser. They kept asking my brother, when are you going to make this 3-beam laser? And he'd say, what? What? They didn't know it was me going to do it. And I'll tell you, when I did do it, when I was sitting there at my drafting table, with pencil and paper, I knew I had these guys standing over my shoulder watching. I knew it. I could feel it. I turned around to look. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, Men in Black, whatever, phase shifters, yeah, whatever. Comes with the territory. I'm over it. Anyway, so they didn't kill us, but after dinner, we ate at a Greek restaurant because Jim was 100% Greek, and the reason they do that is because it's Noah's Ark. Their humans are like animals. They don't want hybrids. They want purebloods. They got pure Greek, pure Egyptian, pure whatever, okay? You pick your nationality, they're going to stock that place with people who are pure. That's pretty sick. It's not just Noah's Ark for witches, it's Noah's Ark for people. Anyway, we went back to Norman's house and had more ouzo and smoked some Cubans. And, I'm not saying that we got, drunk or anything. We're probably feeling happy. But Jim got loose enough to let a whole bunch of stuff slip. Now, this happened after he had gone to Malta to become initiated as a Templar, to kiss the jar that holds the head of John the Baptist, all that crap. This is where he learned about phase shifting, time travel, secret bank accounts, the whole 9 yards. And when he came back from Malta, he was one of them. Before that, we had an anchor. And that anchor, of course, was Christ. Okay, because if you're going to be playing footsie with Satan like this, the only anchor that's going to work is Christ. But when he came back from Malta, it was broken. And he thought, as he became one of them, that he was now an Olympian, a special human, and that everyone else was a subhuman and really needed to be exterminated. That's what those people believe. And he basically told my brother and I, remember Don sitting there, Norman's friend, and of course Don was not involved in any of this. He sat there, but what he heard was directly at my brother and me only. And he said, you're part of the Can't Be Killed Club. Nobody can kill you. We can't kill you. He said he was part of this club also, but he didn't go any further. Now, so my brother and I both recounted to him stories about what had happened to people who tried to screw with us, like the guy on the motorcycle or Don Nixon, that kind of thing. And he said, yep, that's what it is. Now, he never really truly explained how that works. And I'm going to tell you more examples of people who died because of this stuff, and I'm going to get into Rambo and all that. But a couple people compared it to like Groundhog Day, to where if somebody actually was able to kill you, at that second, everything would reset, and that person would be gone. The timeline would be completely corrected, and it wouldn't happen because I would never be aware that it even got close to happening. That's how the universe works. Now, I'll tell you something. I've tried to explain this to people quite a few times, but it really is the nature of time travel and the future and the way reality works, because reality is multiple dimensions. It's also not galaxies, but densities, but the dimensions are basically alternate realities based on probability. So anything that is probable is happening in a different dimension. But the dimension that is most likely to be the main timeline is the one that has the highest level of probability. That means anything that's 90% or over probability is golden. It's 100. Nothing's going to stop it. And anything that's 10% or below probability, the likelihood of that happening is extremely slim. You don't want to be coming from one of those timelines and go forward and not be able to get back, but that's how it works. So what that means, the galaxy, the universe, the Akashic Records, reality will not allow you to do that. Something will happen. You'll have an accident. A fluky thing is going to happen that's going to prevent that happening. And I'll tell you, that causes an extreme amount of fear among my enemies because they know that all I have to do is think about them. And it's just like my healing, which we're going to talk about real soon, is if I see your face and I know your name, I can go straight into your head. I can go straight into your body. I can change your reality. I can change your wavelength. I can heal you or other things. And I don't say that I do that, but I do have Rambo, who is my altar. And you don't want to fuck with Rambo. That's really all I can tell you. But Rambo doesn't have pity. He doesn't have mercy. He is a machine. He will slaughter with zero emotion. That's his job. You're not going to get to deal with Rambo unless you become a Jedi, which I have thousands of, who all work under Rambo. If you've ever met Rambo, you won't forget it. He can look like a dark angel. He can look like Rambo. You know, he looked like me, only a uber mega Chad. Anyway, Rambo does all the work, and all I can do is talk to you guys and work on this level. But when I was making, if you go past this Getty business, you forget about the people we're dealing with, the fact that they didn't kill us. They've told us flat out, you can't kill us. Not too long after that, I started working on programming solid-state lasers with scalar programming, which is basically creating a lightsaber or a simple laser that can alter reality in any way that you can imagine and transmit that information as far as the laser can go. That's a very formidable weapon, and it's something that these guys can't stop. They were scared. Because normally if you do something through the air, we call that radionics, that can be defeated. But they weren't ready for this. Programming a laser. They freaked out. And I got word, and of course, Carrie Cassidy gets really pissed off when I talk about this because she said it's not true, but she was the one that told me that the Bilderbergers put a hit out on me and called me up and said, hey, I got to warn you and Jerry and Thunder, Bilderbergers put a hit on you. Oh, gee, Carrie, you a Bilderberger? Never mind, but you had a hit put on you. You got to do something. They're going to kill you. I said, yeah, okay, Harry, thank you. I'm sorry you had to reveal yourself, but thank you for the warning. I'll never forget that. So, you know, Carrie's gold in my book, no matter what she does because of that. Now, we had that checked out by another connection we had who was NSA, who worked in Alice Springs, which is basically tasked with being the listening post of the entire world. And he basically said, yeah, this is out on the airwaves right now, hit on you guys. Well, I was pretty heavy duty into Reiki at these times, and I was, knew a thing or two. I didn't really understand the nature of what's really going on. If you want to learn Reiki, we'll talk about that later. But I basically reached out to the internet. I was running the QAnon group at the time and I said, hey, guys, I'm going to be, I got a hit out on me by the Bilderbergers, and I could really use some guardian angels and some protective energy and all that, stuff that we like to talk about. And everyone said, okay, praying for you, doing this, that. And what I found out is that we all have a whole bunch of guardian angels. We have ancestors. We have all these people hanging out with us. And if a whole bunch of you ask your protectors, your angels, to send a couple to somebody, they will go. And I ended up with this huge army of protectors that were ancestors and angels and guardians behind me. And of course, I said I was taking Reiki. So I went to class one day. I was doing a thing, and one of the women there who was extremely psychic and active, she looked at me and said, oh, my God, you've got an army behind you. I said, yeah, well, Bilderbergers put hit on me, blah, blah, blah. And it turned out that when it was time to end our little meeting, that some of those protectors decided to go home with her. Well, I'm not surprised because they do that. They think you need protection. They will effectively make adjustments. So I'm not surprised, but this is why I try to always, do good things, and because people are around you all the time. Grandma's watching, if you know what I mean. Well, so that didn't happen. They didn't kill me. But there are many other attempts to kill me, or at least program me or manage me. And one of the biggest ones, of course, was that event at Henderson, the Super Soldier event in Henderson, the one with James Rink and all those people. James Casbolt, Max Spears, yada, yada. Lorian Fenton was running it. Turned out the whole event was put on by none other than Michael Aquino. Anyway, at least a half a dozen people that were involved with that event that had, malicious purpose as well. Let's say, I don't know what they did to me. All I know is that at least 5 of those 6 people are dead, and Casbolt went to jail, lost his billionaire wife, and lost his baby. So that's probably a fate worse than death. But Max Spears spewed black goo. Aquino's dead. Former White Hat is dead. A couple other people are dead. You don't fuck with a Jedi. You don't fuck with somebody that's got Rambo involved, okay? And if you have malice towards me, that's not a good thing to have. Now, I have decided that the best way for me to get the word out is to go out there and do miracles in front of the public and have people that receive these miracles to do testimony, whether these people like it or not, because what are you going to do? You're not going to be able to kill me. So if I got to get your attention, I'm going to have a few of these miracle things going on, okay? I'm going to use that to propel my face out there so that I can overwhelm the mass media if it has to be done. I don't care anymore because I don't have a lot of time. And, I found out I'm going to have cataract surgery in like 10 years or less, or I'm going to be blind, and I'm not too happy about having to have my eyes cut open and plastic lenses stuck in there. They say, oh, you get Medicare, they'll fix you right up. You know what I mean? I was only planning on being here 10 years, and now I got to stick around longer and keep my stamina and all that stuff because I got to keep leading people when I tell you guys that I'm not going to live stream nothing. I'm not going to be here forever to teach you this stuff. There comes a time when you've learned enough and you need to get out there and be the teacher and rile these people up and get this mission going yourself. Don't wait for me to call you. Go out there and start calling people yourself. We're a nonviolent mission. We're peaceful. We're here to make everybody turn into brothers and sisters again so that they can love each other, because these people down there that are eating our children are not going to give up until you do that. We got to have advanced human powers. That means not only are we all going to be Jedi and be able to smite them with our brains, but we also have to love them as family, as fellow humans, and not terrorize them and make them think we're going to cut their heads off, okay? That's really, really important. Now, I don't know how long they're going to let me stay on Twitter, because if you haven't paid attention, they're ramping up the censorship. It's getting bad. And even Elon Musk was naive enough to come out and say, gee, I had to get a Microsoft account because I bought a new computer. Hello, Elon. Microsoft is going to turn that computer off whenever they decide the time is right. So that's why you guys got to learn to do this stuff yourself when I can't tell you what to do. Very, very important. You got to join my Telegram group now. If you haven't done it, Occupy the Getty /Stephen D. Kelly. You need to join me on Twitter. You need to spread my stuff around. That just doesn't mean, what do they call that, retweeting, because it gets taken down for me. It gets taken down for everybody. You got to copy and paste this stuff. You got to save it to your desktop or in a folder. All these memes I put out, you should be saving every one of these memes, okay? And again, before I go, I want to tell you guys, I'm going to start doing events, okay? I'm working with David. I'm going to do this thing in April. If you haven't bought a ticket, please come. I don't like taking your money at all. It costs money. It's going to cost more because it's getting closer to the event price date. And I'm not even going to say these people there that are great want to be there. But what I need right now is I need support, because this is how I'm going to go show David that I can do an entire event by myself. And this is the next phase of what I'm going to do. I'm going to do weekend retreats by myself. None of these other people are going to be there. Just me and you guys. And I'm going to start out small, maybe 25 couples, 50 people. First event I do in Sedona, I want it to be couples, okay? I don't expect you guys to do it, but if you want to participate, it's couples, okay? I want to turn that into something big. That is a marketing ploy, people. It's all about marketing right now. But eventually, I want to work up more and more and more in bigger venues when my name gets out there and get people in there for as little as possible all over the place. Now, I don't want to have to fly over the Rockies. So I need you guys to come over here on this side of the Rockies. There's a lot of places in California we can do this, what have you. But I want your support. It's not going to be cheap, but I'm going to do everything I can do to keep it cheap. But mostly I need you to help me advertise this stuff. I need you to make me famous. Testimonials. If I've done healing on you, do testimonials. Email me this stuff. I mean, my God, I cured a blind woman. She was technically blind. She got 100% vision back. She sent me a couple $100 and she's made a few testimonials, but I wish I had her with me now. Seriously, if you guys have had miracles in your life, write testimonials, okay? And make them like they're going to be in the back of a book or something, because this is what I need right now. All right? We need ammo. You got to help me get famous. Well, we had a decent amount of people here listening, which is fun. And I tried to give you a good show. I know a lot of people are still going to say, well, blah, 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 this or that. Hell, I even, that's the thing about when you're dealing with CIA. After a while, I used to have this saying that once you've gone toe-to-toe with the CIA, nothing scares you. And that's absolutely true. And this is before I even knew I was dealing with the Ollie North gang. I mean, these guys are killers. But they can't come and get me. I deal with the ADL, the ADF, the Jewish Defense League, Mossad. FBI's at my front door harassing me, trying to threaten me with coming in there with a search warrant. And all I had to do is mention Robert Vesco, and they took off running. They couldn't get away from me quick enough. They aborted that thing instantly, and I haven't heard dick from them forever. And I've challenged the CIA. Come on, guys. I called them up and said, do something about these babies under the Getty, and they haven't done shit. You know what they did? They said, please don't protest on private property. And they don't like those phone calls, that I'm told you the guys to make and bug them. And same thing about the Getty. The vice president of public relations, Linda Lappin, she's got to answer to fact checkers, say, no, that is fraudulent and wrong, double negatives. It's not true. Open the fuck up and let us see it. And why in the hell didn't Trump, in the whole 4 years he was in office, do it for us? Because he sure as hell saw my petitions before he shut down the petition page. So don't tell me Trump doesn't know about this, because as soon as he took office, he went and started talking about the gold and the secret space program. He could have kept his mouth shut. By the way, there'll be a lot of secret space program people at this event. I get along with them, but Jedi are the real astral warriors. If you want to be one of us, send me an email, law17gun@aol.com. If you want to donate to the cause, please use PayPal. It's StephenKelly714@yahoo.com. If you want a book, email me, join my pages, talk to me. I'm happy to talk to you. If you can help me get on the air and get in front of people, I would really appreciate it. Oh, it's raining. We had a whole bunch of lightning. Not too worried about it. I thought maybe you might have some outages because of the lightning, but we're all good. All right, guys, I hope you join me next week. I think I've told you enough stories about dead people and all that, and what happens to people that mess with me or Rambo. I mean, I'm sure Rambo's much worse. Come on, seriously, we have at least 3,000 or more Jedi there under Rambo, and it's like a plague of locusts. When we go through the Getty and take out these levels, it's like a plague of locusts, only human size, and they're all like surgeons, and they just slice everything in their way with no emotion, none whatsoever. And that's why I don't let the Jedi remember anything, because it's too horrible. And those people that joined my team who were professionals, they did this all the time. Once you become a Jedi, you don't get that anymore. Okay, if you're used to seeing everything you do, you don't get that. You give that up. because now you're under Rambo. You're working under different rules. I used to get pissed off, and I'd say, I want to see, I want to see. Then he showed me about 30 seconds, and I had enough. Like I said, nightmares are already bad enough. Okay, it comes with the territory. I'm sorry, Jedi, if you're having nightmare issues. It's rough. I know a lot of you are waking up sore in the morning and stuff like that. But you know what? Hey, we're working really hard right now. Just deal with it. We're getting really close, and thank God there's us here. Because if it wasn't for you guys, prophecy wouldn't be fulfilled. So that's what those guys under the Getty didn't know. They didn't know how we were going to do it. They thought we were going to do it with guns, but no. We're doing it in the astral, and we don't use guns in the astral. We use a lot of swords, though, I'll tell you. A lot of swords and martial arts and any nasty thing. Yeah, the MP5s. I like MP5, but, some people use ray guns. It's whatever you want down there. Okay? Chainsaw, I don't care. Just as long as it cuts. And we move really, really fast. They move really, really slow. They don't even move. We just whoosh right through it. Anyway, so like I said, I don't really care about the bad guys. I poke at them, and what are they going to do? They're not going to do nothing. All right? And now I got this out there. So like I told Craig Sawyer, why don't you get all your boys on a bus and get all your guns and, head over here and we'll see what happens, okay? Because I don't need a gun. I was Mr. Gun Guy. They called me Doc Holliday. Well, you know what? I don't need a gun anymore. You can't even get near me. The last thing you want to do is have your face in my mind. It's the last thing you want. All right? I'm going to let you guys go. I know I could probably go on for another 6-7 minutes, but like I said, it's raining. But I do expect you to spread the word, okay? Your number one job is to grow me. Grow me on Twitter. Grow me on Telegram. Grow me, okay? And if I have to have somebody like David go out there and set up shows so I can get in front of a bunch of people, that's a necessary evil I regret. But at the same time, it's the nature of the animal we're dealing with, okay? So as far as I'm concerned, there should be no talking heads but me, and you guys need to help me make that happen. All righty? All right, I know a lot of you had enough. I see a bunch of you starting to drop off according to my survey, which got... Oh, yeah, by the way, we got a little hackage on the... If you go to the website, if you're listening to this show on the Truth Cat Radio page, you might notice some really nasty supplements that they're trying to sell on a couple of the pages, not the main page. So hopefully I'll get that fixed up tonight real quick by Andy. Andy's supposed to be calling me, so maybe he's listening right now, waiting for the show to be over. Okay? Fortunately, I did press the record button, so we're good. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being with me. And I just want to remind you once again that my name is Stephen D. Kelly, and this is Truth Cat Radio, and it's still March 7th, 2024. It's now 6:55 p.m. It's 56 degrees and light rain here in La Puente, California. I'm going to see you next week, right? Okay. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.